We are back with Farfa here to evaluate some Magic the Gathering cards. You liked him so much the last time, so we're inviting the Maniac back again. I said I wouldn't say Maniac, but here I go. We have a card from a white card, blue, black, red, and green card. They all have different, a little bit of convoluted mechanics to show you, so hopefully you have some fun with them. A rotation just happened in Standard, so are you ready to take a deep dive into post-rotation Standard convoluted mechanics?
Let's go. My only goal is to beat MBT. As the guy who keeps constantly talking about and won't shut up about Magic, I'm scoring better than him, so I like to keep that trend up. Let's do it.
Let's go ahead and get you started with the first card, a white card, a post-standard rotation convoluted mechanic. Here we go. Also, I know you didn't get this type of card before, and there's a couple of types of cards that you haven't had before, so ask questions.
Okay. Ah, shit, a Planeswalker. Okay, we are starting hard, I guess.
100%.
Ajani, the sleeper agent, a legendary Planeswalker of the Ajani tribe or archetype, I assume.
Ajani is the name of the Planeswalker. It's just the Planeswalker named Ajani. It's not a tribe.
Okay, so what is this, like 4 mana, I think?
It's 4 mana, but I had to, but then read the completed keyword there.
Is it yours completed spelled incorrectly?
It is.
Okay, completed. Looks like a 50-50 land cost.
Yeah, basically.
Cost, right? Can be paid with green, white, or 2 life. If life was paid, this Planeswalker enters with 2 fewer loyalty counters, and I assume that's the thing on the bottom right?
Yes.
Reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature or Planeswalker card, put it into your hand. Otherwise, you may put it on the bottom of your library. So how does -3 work in +1? Does it just like lose loyalty counters to use these effects?
Soft once per turn at sorcery speed. Actually, soft once per turn, spell speed 1, I should say. Who knows what sorcery speed is? You're a Yu-Gi-Oh player. So spell speed 1, soft once per turn. You can use each one of the loyalty abilities of Johnny, and you have to take off or add the corresponding loyalty counters. If you don't have enough loyalty counters, you can't use the ability.
Right. So first effect, you gain a loyalty counter, and you can just +1 off the top of your deck if it's a monster or a Planeswalker.
Yes. Also, when Planeswalkers can be attacked just like the player can, and a Planeswalker loses loyalty equal to the amount of damage done to the Planeswalker.
So in a battle phase, like, do you just declare an attack in Magic, and then your opponent basically has to do the hard work to like choose what to block and not block and stuff, right? So like,
yes.
what do they have to? So now with Planeswalkers in play, do they have to declare I am attacking you or your Planeswalker with this, or is it still like I declare an attack?
You can attack a player and or Planeswalker. If you have 4 attackers, you can attack 3 at a Planeswalker and 1 at your opponent's face, or not attack with one of them and attack 2 at the Planeswalker and 1 at your opponent's face, or everything at a Planeswalker.
But you have to declare it.
You have to declare everything at the same time and where they're going.
Okay. So, I mean, the first effect already just seems good. Just getting pluses and building up loyalty counters for seemingly no downside whatsoever. Does it cost mana to like do that +1 thing?
It only costs mana to cast a Planeswalker itself.
To just summon it, essentially.
Yes.
Okay. Distribute 3 1/1 counters among up to 3 target creatures. They gain vigilance until the end of turn. So you go -3 in loyalty to give everything 1/1. That's health and attack, right?
A 1/1 counter is a permanent health and attack, yes.
And vigilance, that keyword is that basically taunt?
No.
What is vigilance again?
Creatures usually have to tap to attack. If a creature has the vigilance keyword, it does not have to tap to attack. So it can still attack and also be back to block.
I see. Okay. I'm trying to remember even how like this is how little Magic I've played. I'm trying to even remember just how like the battle phase works. When you declare an attack with a creature in Magic, you tap it goes to defense. Like, how much does that cost? Is it just 1 mana, or is it the cost of the card, or?
You don't have to pay any mana to attack.
Right. Okay. So what does tapping a creature mean when it attacks? Like,
it means that it can't block. You can only block with untapped creatures.
Ah, that's the downside. Okay, cool. All right. So -3 to distribute +1 to 3 guys and makes them permanent attackers, I suppose. You could also pay 6. You get an emblem with whenever you cast a creature or Planeswalker spell, target opponent gets to... Oh, this bullshit again. Toxic or poison? Let me figure out which one. Anyway.
Yeah, is it toxic or poison?
Whenever you cast a creature or planeswalker spell, target opponent gets 2 poison counters. Okay. So does this guy basically cost 4 mana?
It is 4 mana, or it's 4 mana with a green or white there. Green, green, white, or green, white, white. Or it's 1 green, 2 life, and white. So it could be 3 mana.
What?
It can be 3 mana, just letting you know. 3 mana and 2 life. But with the completed keyword, if you do that, it comes in with 2 less loyalty counters.
2 less counters.
So basically, you can't -3 right away if you cast it with the complete cost.
And then, so am I able to summon this with the life cost? It goes down to 2, and then use the +1 ability to go to +3, and then just immediately use the -3 ability?
On the next turn, yes. It's a soft once per turn spell speed 1 ability.
Oh, so it's like you have to choose which of these
Correct.
like loyalty counter effects you. Okay. Is that just a planeswalker thing in general?
Yes.
Or... Okay. All right. I'm gonna go ahead with I think this is a good card, but I want to caveat it with the fact that I don't actually have a very good reference point for what is considered a good or bad planeswalker. It seems fairly low investment with the life point cheating ability potentially. And you can immediately use it to get the +1, and then on the next turn, you can use the distribution effect. 4 mana seems, I don't know if that's cheap or expensive in terms of planeswalker. It feels a little bit on the cheap end. It's a decent first and second effect. I'm just not sure if the -6 effect is hugely relevant. I know that green is a deck that can utilize poison counters and such, but overall, I want to say it's not exactly blowing me away, but I just feel like the mana cost of this guy being fairly low and the ability to cheat it with the life point makes it so that getting this raw card advantage, just essentially +1 every turn, is decent. Card advantage in Magic generally doesn't mean a lot, but I suppose that could be the reason why it isn't very good, because it doesn't seem to immediately do anything until, I guess, you use... Well, I mean, you know, the +1 vigilance on everything is good. I don't know how good 3/3 stats is on the field immediately on turn 4 is, but I do just get the feeling that this is a good card. So just like at a base level, on like your turn 4, you could essentially read Ajani as like, for 4 mana, you get a planeswalker that puts 3/3 on the field that gives everything vigilance. Is that worth it? I mean, that sounds like it's almost supposed to be kind of aggro-y, if anything, but I don't know.
Also, I know a question that you didn't ask me is, what is an emblem? An emblem is basically a permanent state of the game that cannot be interacted.
So it's like a permanent enchantment?
Yes, and your opponent can't remove it.
Okay. See, I'm kind of just... I don't know if you've noticed, I basically ignored the last effect because it's -6, so it's going to take a while to ramp that up.
Yes.
So, you know, it's like, is it even worth that? Like, target opponent gets 2 poison counter. What is it? It's like 10, they lose the duel or something?
Yes.
Okay. Feel like a planeswalker in Magic is the type of card that you should feel absolutely pogchamp about summoning. And this guy just seems so okay and fair, which I guess in the context of modern Magic probably makes it shit because it's only okay. So you know what? I think the reference in context of other planeswalkers, I'm just going to go ahead and say Ajani sucks.
Ooh, you're going to change your mind.
Yeah, I am.
But it draws cards, Farfa.
Again, I don't know how good drawing a card is, right? Like, Magic feels like a game where you just have tons of card advantage anyway. So, I mean, +1, and it's random as well, by the way. So it's not even guaranteed. So I guess you can kind of sort of change your top deck. But it's like, each of these effects is once per turn. So it's like, what? I'm paying 4 mana to summon a guy that just basically is card trader? Yeah, that just doesn't seem amazing.
All right. You gaslit yourself into the right answer. This card is not good. Yeah. Yeah, this card is not good. I mean, the context of all of these cards could change based on the new standard because, yeah, rotation did just happen. And all of a sudden, and you never know, Ajani Sleeper Agent could just be like the new sliced bread. But you want to be playing this card in an aggressive shell because you already need creatures in play by turn 3 if you want to maximize Ajani's abilities, or by turn 4, really, if you want to cast this on turn 4, buff up your creatures right away, because when you cast this on turn 4, it comes with 4 loyalty. But the ability to cast it on turn 3 plus get a creature, you're already playing this in creature decks anyway. So the +1's like gonna draw you a card like, you know, maybe 70% of the time, 60-something% of the time probably, which Is that good enough for a card trader for 3 mana? Probably not. But you getting the -3 could be good. But since the new format is kind of unexplored, it could technically be good. But historically, this card has not been good at all. People have tried it, but it ends up just being cut from the deck. So not good. But good job on that one. You had to read like 18 keywords.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess at this point I should have memorized them all and we're good to go, and the rest we could just fire through.
Yeah, you're just an expert. Okay, moving on to the blue card.
Oh boy, blue cards. Yeah, listen, if a blue card doesn't like stun your opponent on turn 2 for like free, then it's gonna suck. That's all I know about blue.
When you're already on the path to beating the MBT. Here we go. Here's the blue card.
Case of the Ransacked Lab. What is an enchantment case? Is that different from an enchantment?
Correct. A case is something that has the ability, the top one, right when you play it. So that one's kind of already there. And then you have to solve the case. So to solve, you have to do a specific thing or have something happen in the game. And then it becomes solved. Yes, it's a quest. And then it becomes solved. When it is solved, it gets the bottom of the build.
Okay, so already that sounds absolutely garbage. So the payoff has to be like significantly like more powerful than just any other card you'd be playing in its place to really justify having to essentially go on a side quest. But potentially, if that side quest is easily fillable naturally by your deck's win condition, then I suppose cases could be good cards. But if you need to do something like very convoluted outside of the generic win condition of your deck and of your color, then I guess it would suck. So
yes,
let's see.
We're making Magic the Gathering into Skyrim. Okay, last video we did dungeon crawling. This time we're doing quest complete, side quest.
Well, I appreciate that they're trying new things. You know, that's very creative, admittedly. So for 3 mana, you can instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Is that just generically applied for the game?
While this is in play.
Okay.
But it does stay in play. It's an enchantment.
You kind of need. All right. Kind of slow. You need to kind of ramp up to that point to, essentially get the full value off of it by turn 4 or 5. So seems good still. Let's see. To solve, you've cast 4 or more instant and sorcery spells this turn. If unsolved, solve at the beginning of your end step. What does that mean? If unsolved, solve at the beginning of your end step. What if? So if you just never solve it, it solves itself?
No. If it's unsolved at the beginning of your end step, you solve it if you've completed the solve requirement.
Right. Okay. So you can't just like solve it immediately. It always has to like kick in to the next turn, basically.
Yeah, it kicks in at the start of your end phase.
Okay. Wow. It's a little slow then. Solve. Whenever you cast an instant or a sorcery spell, draw a card. It's pretty good. That is decent. My initial thoughts is that this feels somewhat slow because it's 3 mana, do nothing. Essentially, like there isn't any kind of immediate advantage to gain from it. Applying the -1 cost on everything is definitely going to get huge value over the course of a whole game. It's just a question of how long is a blue game going to last, I suppose. Casting 4 or more instant and sorceries this turn. I mean, that's very... So again, that goes back to what I said at the start, which is, having to go on this like convoluted, dumb like side quest seems absolutely terrible. But this seems like you're just playing the game, right? You don't have to do anything crazy or special. I think blue probably naturally, whether or without this card, will be casting the likes of 4 or more instant and sorcery spells in a turn on the later turns. Question is how long is a match in Magic going to last to really get more and more value to this? Because basically every single time you activate a spell after this card is in play, you are getting some kind of value off of the cost reduction. And I think that the solved effect is pretty good. In some cases, I actually feel like the -1 cost on everything might have actually just been like the better effect of this thing, to be honest with you. But, overall, I'm going to say I think this is actually a good card. It feels like you aren't necessarily doing anything outside of your win condition. It's giving you good value immediately by the next spell you cast for 3 mana. So essentially it pays for itself in 3 cards value-wise. So I think that's not terrible. And obviously, restocking your hand over the course of a match whenever you cast any spell to draw a card is good value. So I think, again, contextual to how long a Magic duel actually lasts, but you know, the longer a duel takes, the better and better this card gets, I think. So yeah, I think it's a good card.
Okay, and a deck that wants to play this is going to be a deck that wants the match to last a little bit longer. So you are right when you say, oh, contextually to how long the match lasts. Well, it's going to last a pretty long time if you're going to be playing this card on turn 3 of the game. The problem, though, is that your first analysis of this card was spot on, as in it is a 3-mana do nothing. You have to play this card, and then your spells cost 1 less, but like if your spells cost... If you want to be playing a bunch of spells in a turn, like, you really don't want to be playing a 3-mana enchantment. Plus, it doesn't have the same synergy with your deck that your deck already has. If you're casting instants and sorceries, all of a sudden you have to put enchantments into your deck, in your instants and sorceries deck. So it just makes your deck kind of a hodgepodge of things that don't really quite work together. And you have to play this on turn 3, do nothing. So it is almost
what I need to do is focus on the fact that Magic is still fast regardless. You need things to happen immediately. You need like good value on the spot, not just card trader for 1 or, you know, reduce the cost of everything. I guess the game is still a decent power level. So yes. I guess, yeah, maybe it's in, I don't know. It's like,
it is good.
Yeah, over the course of a whole game, it seems like it would, again, you just mathematically, you're getting so much value, but yeah, I guess it's just not fast enough.
Yeah, you are getting a lot of value, but if you think about it, even if your instants and sorceries cost 1 less to cast, you can play this on turn 3, and you can solve it as early as turn 4 of the game. And yes, you are using cards to interact with your opponent, like kill their thing with a spell, kill their thing with a spell, cast a draw spell, cast a draw spell, which is like you know, the nut draw or whatever. But you have to like interact with them on turn 1, interact with them on turn 2. You have to play your lands also. So how many spells do you have left in your hand realistically after you've done all of that? Probably not 4 that you can cast to solve this. So it kind of just sits there and does nothing for a while until you can try to do it. So you're trying to interact with your opponent, and then you're also trying to solve this. The real way to, like, you know, make use of this card after you've already paid 3 mana and did nothing was play spells that draw additional cards. Like, there's a card called Quick Study that is in the new standard that is basically just 3 mana, draw 2 cards, 3 mana Pot of Greed. But with this card, it would be 2 mana Pot of Greed. That is a very good card. But you'd have to kind of use those cards, draw additional cards, chain different spells together to flip this. Unfortunately, it's a little bit too slow and convoluted to solve, so that's why it is not good.
It's interesting you brought up the card advantage thing, because I honestly figured that, you know, card advantage didn't mean a whole lot, because, you know, you could just cast some kind of like 3 mana draw 3 or something, but okay, I gotta keep that in mind.
I mean, 3 mana draw 3 is a broken card in Magic. Like, 3 mana draw 3 is absurd. I would say they hardly don't print those cards, but they do with a downside. Like, draw 3 cards, discard 2 unless you discard a land. They kind of have those kind of cards in blue, but not just straight up 3 mana draw 3. I'm waiting for someone in the comments to tell me, wait, but what about this 3 mana draw 3 card? Shut up. Anyway, are you ready to go to the black card?
Yeah, my favorite. Let's go.
Hey, let's go. Black is my favorite color too.
If I get this one wrong, I'm going to be so embarrassed.
I'm going to be embarrassed for you. All right, this one is a 2-parter. First part is this.
Okay, should I do part 1 first, I suppose?
Yes.
All right. Aclazotz, Deepest Betrayal. It is a 5-mana creature, right? Yeah, Bat God. Flying lifelink. Whenever Aclazotz attacks each opponent, discards a card. For each opponent who can't, you draw a card. Whenever an opponent discards a land card, create a 1/1 black bat creature token with flying. When Aclazotz dies, return to the battlefield tapped and transformed under its owner's control.
Okay, and that
transforms into another card?
Yep.
Yeah.
That transforms into this.
How does that even work, like, rule-wise? Like, because does the transformed card go in your deck, or does it come out of your box?
It is on the back of Aclazotz.
Oh, you just flip it? Okay.
Yep. Take it out of the sleeve.
So cool.
Put it back in the sleeve the other way.
That is such a cool mechanic. Isn't there like a lot of stacking like that in Magic? Like, surely you can kind of see some of the stuff.
You can actually get either disqualified or asked to change your sleeves if they're transparent on the back.
But even naturally, when you just use like regular colored sleeves, like, you can kind of see, like, you know, the artwork on the back now.
Only in like Dragon Shield yellow and stuff like that you can see kind of the back. Dragon Shield white.
Oh, okay. So anyone who uses yellow Dragon Shield sleeves while playing this card is a cheater.
Correct.
Is what you're saying. All right, so it turns into a Temple of the Dead land card. Transforms from Aclazotz. Tap, add a... What is, like, add it? Does that mean just add a land from your deck, or you just gain a mana for the turn?
This is my favorite part of new players, because, like, when I was new, I thought you just added a swamp from your deck to your hand. No, it adds mana. It adds mana to your mana pool.
Okay, so do you have to use, like, a token land for that or something to depict what that looks like?
No, it just becomes a land, and you kind of what's called floating mana. You just, like, say you have a black mana in your mana pool.
Okay. So that's essentially like a net like neutral, right, in terms of land.
Yeah, you have to tap
cost.
Yeah, and every land has tap. Almost every land, tap, add the color of mana.
Yeah, so it becomes that color.
Yeah, basically,
turn, essentially.
Yep.
Or does it it lasts like forever until you tap it? I assume, right?
It's available to be used if this Temple of the Dead is untapped. It's available to be used to create black mana, and then you use your black mana to cast your spells.
No, but what I'm saying is, like, if I tap it to get black mana, does that just last until I use it, or is it only until the turn?
Oh, it lasts until the end of the phase.
Oh, okay. All right. Just learning a basic bit of land mechanic there.
Yep.
So 2 mana. No, 3, right? I think that is.
It is 2 and a
3,
black.
right?
Yeah, so 3 total.
Yeah, okay. Tap, Transport Temple of the Dead. Activate only if a player has 1 or fewer cards in hand and only as a sorcery. Wait, what does that mean? Does it transform back into Aclazotz?
Yes.
Oh, what the fuck?
So you have to pay 2 and a black and tap this to transform it. When it transforms, it makes a tapped Aclazotz. Because you tap the land and it just flips over.
Right. So that's different to summoning a monster in Magic, right? Monsters don't get summoned tapped.
Some do. Some say, like, this creature enters the battlefield tapped, and it will just enter tapped.
Okay, but as a general rule, no.
No. Yeah, as a general rule, no.
Okay. So essentially what you're getting out of this is a 5 mana, like, permanent monster, per se, or like a monster that you can choose to pay to revive, essentially.
Yes.
Which what I learned from previously is that flying is in fact good. So that's pretty cool to know. It's 4/4. When it attacks, each opponent discards a card. That sounds very funny in Commander.
Yes.
For each opponent who can you draw a card. I mean, this seems like a crazy good card in Commander, potentially. Okay, so like ripping hand looping in Magic, maybe not as crazy, but probably still has decent amount of value. And I assume they choose the card that they rip, right? It's not like Yu-Gi-Oh where you just like roll a dice or something.
Oh yeah, no, they choose. This will be definitely, of course, like the last video in 1v1, like 60 cards. But yeah, it would be pretty good in mechanics in Commander, since it says each opponent.
So this card just needs to attack. It doesn't need to like successfully deal damage or anything. Like you just declare an attack, rip a card.
Yes. Well, yeah, your opponent discards a card. Yeah.
I mean, like that's kind of cool. And it can turn into a land. Whenever opponent discards a land, you could get a token with flying. I guess they would avoid discarding lands, but if they have a surplus of land, they might want to and feel like the 1/1 black bat creature you get is worth it. When it dies, it turns into the temple. Lifelink is leech, basically, right?
Yes.
Do you still get the life gain when you attack a blocking monster? No?
I'm sorry. Attack a blocking monster?
Yeah, like, so you declare an attack and your opponent blocks.
Yes. The damage that you would do to a creature, if they block you, you also gain the life.
And if you hit directly for 4 to the face, you still get the 4.
Correct.
I'm just wondering how good, like, the cost is relative to the revival effect. Because essentially you're paying 5 mana to summon what is... I'm going to say is a somewhat underwhelming card initially, potentially, maybe. I don't know. 4/4 stats for 5 mana seems on the lower end to me. The effect doesn't even seem that great. I mean, it's fine. Like, I don't know, 5 mana, a flying lifelink that rips a card from your opponent's hand immediately. Is that good? Well, not immediately, because summoning sickness.
Yep. Listen, I told you I was going to test you today, so you have some hard ones.
Yeah. Like, I want this to be good because it seems so cool and so unique and interesting, because it's a guy that turns into land. Like, that seems kind of just really cool. So in some ways, like when it becomes a land, you could maybe consider this like realistically, it's not 5 mana, it's 4 mana because it turns into land that can then like tap to add. Like that's, I suppose, actually perhaps one way you could look at it in terms of the maths.
And you have to have 5 mana to
mana
initially cast it, so it is a really convoluted way to look at the math, yes, but you can look at it like that.
I think I'm gonna go with my like, I could just be undervaluing the revival effect, but I think I've learned from the blue card that if something doesn't immediately do something like somewhat worthwhile, and that it takes like a decent amount of time to ramp up into good value, it's like, okay, cool. Eventually, when it's dealt with, it can come back as itself. Every declaration of attack, you have to like, you can rip a card on the next turn. Removal for flying monsters isn't that common in Magic, I suppose. So against some decks, they might actually find this card to be extremely annoying. Because interacting with a flying guy that rips your hand every turn is probably somewhat difficult for some decks to deal with. But it just feels like for 5 mana to do that, essentially doing that on turn 6 to rip a card, I think it's my bias towards black that really wants this to be good, but it just doesn't feel like it does enough, as cool of a gimmick as it is. So I think this is a bad card.
This is one of the best black bombs in...
Just no shot, dude. Yeah. What the fuck? Was I that far off the mark?
You want it to be good, and fortunately for you, it is good in all of the ways that you said. It's pretty annoying for a lot of decks to deal with. Some decks can't actually exile this. You have to exile this to really kill it, or make it as a land and kill it when it's a land. There's some land destruction cards like Demolition Field that says like destroy target land, each player gets a basic land. You can't destroy this and then destroy the land, but it kind of takes 2 cards to get rid of this no matter which way you look at it, unless you exile it. Exiling it is the most efficient way to do that, but exiling a 5 mana card is pretty hard to do unless you have a card like Sunfall that exiles all creatures, and only certain decks can play that card. This card being like an 8-point life swing is pretty impossible for aggro decks to beat, because what are they going to do? Attack into this thing and let you gain 4 life, and then it becomes a land, and then you're going to get it again the next turn? No, right? If they leave it in play, then they have to they're incentivized to use all the cards in their hand, so they don't have to discard a card from Aclazotz. Then they're going to take 4, they're going to gain 4 life, which makes it harder to kill them, and then they're going to draw an additional card because they didn't discard a card. So it's like, it's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, if you really get an Aclazotz in play. It is hard to get to sometimes because 5 mana is a lot of mana, but this is basically one of the 5 mana win the game cards in Standard.
That good? Just for a floating, like, flying lifelink?
Now, against control decks, this card is not very good. It's still good because you do want to get rid of your opponent's hand in a control deck, but a lot of the control decks in Standard play exile removal, like the Sunfall card that I already mentioned. So not as good against decks that can exile this, but not a lot of decks can exile it. So it generally is like the best thing you want to be doing on turn 5.
Wow, okay.
I know.
I guess maybe like the stats threw me off. Like 4/4 did seem small, but like I suppose for a flying monster, it would be absurd for a flying monster to have like large stats, you know, mathematically compared to its mana cost, I suppose.
Especially lifelink. Flying and lifelink makes the card really good because it's almost impossible to race this card if you're an aggro deck. Race means like they kill you obviously before you kill them. And then this card is also really annoying to kill because it will just come back the next turn. So yeah, really good.
Yeah, for only 3 mana. Okay, well, damn, I'm not on it today, I suppose.
No, it's all good. You have 2 more chances. You ready for your red card?
Yeah, let's go.
This introduces the adventure mechanic. You looked at the venture into the dungeon mechanic. This is adventure.
Okay. Yeah, when it comes to red cards, I'm just going to look at the mana cost first and foremost. 3 mana, 4/4, instant. Okay, this might be good just based off of this information alone. So this is Decadent Dragon. Expensive Taste, 3 mana, an instant adventure. So how does that work? Like, what am I dealing with?
How the adventure mechanic works is you can choose which side to cast from your hand. If you cast the left side of the card, it like turns into that spell basically. Expensive Taste. You put that on the stack. You pay 2 and a black, and then it goes into exile. And then at any other point in the game, you can play the Decadent Dragon side from exile. If you cast Decadent Dragon first from your hand, you do not have access to the Expensive Taste effect.
So basically, I can choose for this to be either the Flying Trample right side effect, or I can pay 3 mana to then pay 2 mana to then do that effect.
You can pay 3 mana, do the effect, and then it becomes exiled. Then you may cast Decadent Dragon at any point in the game from exile.
So I can get so if I choose to cast it as the left side effect, I still get that effect initially for 3 mana, and then thereafter I can keep paying 2 mana to use the other effect.
Where do you see the 2 mana?
Sorry, the 3 mana.
You basically put Expensive Taste on the stack, like that's the spell you're casting if you choose to cast the black side of it. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then you do whatever that says. Okay? And then after that effect resolves, like after that spell resolves, Decadent Dragon itself goes to exile, like the whole card goes into exile. And at any other point in the game, you can cast Decadent Dragon by paying 2 and 2 red, like it says on the top right.
I see.
Like it's basically like a pendulum. Like you have one side of the card, and then it becomes exiled, and then you can cast the other side of the card.
I'm glad you've got the Yu-Gi-Oh terminology for me here.
Yes.
Okay.
But if you choose to cast Decadent Dragon from your hand, instead of using the black side first, okay, instead of using Expensive Taste first, you're like, oh, I want this 4/4 Decadent Dragon in play, right? You can cast it from your hand as Decadent Dragon instead of Expensive Taste, but then it won't go into exile, and you won't be able to cast Expensive Taste at all.
Yeah. So it's 4 mana for the monster side, and it's 3 mana for becoming a spell, essentially.
Yes, but then it will get exiled, and then you can cast Decadent Dragon at any other point in the game.
And when you say cast Decadent Dragon, you mean it can summon itself from exile?
Yes.
Okay, so I think it's really confusing because you're referring to it as 2 separate cards, whereas my mind is looking at this as one card with an effect called Expensive Taste. Okay,
yes,
I get it now.
Is 2 separate cards.
Sure. All right. Expensive Taste, 3 mana, instant adventure. Exile the top 2 cards of target opponent's library face down. You may look at and play those cards for as long as they remain exiled. I want to say that's like weirdly kind of bad. There's no way just like seeing 2 random cards at the top of your opponent's deck is like that. I mean, you might hit like a relevant like Garnet piece or something, I suppose, like an engine requirement. But then you don't even get the value off of it because you get to then look at those 2 face down cards, and then I assume you just you pay the cost of those cards whenever you want to use them. It isn't just like you get them for free.
Yes. You can play them for as long as they remain exiled, and you do have to spend mana to cast them.
Mm-hmm. So it's like, cool, I can like... what's that shitty old school Yu-Gi-Oh card that like just looks at your opponent's hand or something?
Oh, what is that card?
The Inexperienced Spy.
Yes, the Inexperienced Spy, yeah.
Yeah, you just do that off the top for like 2 cards on their deck to like maybe get decent value out of it. You paid 3 mana for that. That seems absolutely terrible.
You can play lands as well.
So does that mean you can potentially get just free land for this?
Yes, you can. If you use Expensive Taste first before you cast Decadent Dragon, and you exile 2 cards off your opponent's library, and both of them are lands, you just get 2 free land drops in the game whenever you want them.
Okay. And it's flying, piercing. Whenever a Decadent Dragon attacks, create a treasure token. Why does this not have any stats? What is a treasure token?
A treasure token is a token that you put on the board that you can tap and sacrifice it to add a mana of any color.
Okay, I'm just going to say, like, straight up, like, Expensive Taste is dog shit. I generally think this is terrible. Like, why would you ever pay 3 mana in a red deck to maybe hit 2 cards that you then have to then use later and pay for? Okay, you can hit lands. That's okay. You know, if you can randomly hit a land off the top, then I guess, but that seems absolutely awful. The monster effect's interesting, though, to be fair. It's 4 mana for flying, piercing, and anytime it attacks, it summons a token that you could sacrifice to add a mana?
Yes. And it's a 4 power, 4 toughness flying, yeah. Said it already.
I can't wait to for you to tell me how completely wrong I am on Expensive Taste, by the way, but that seems absolutely trash. Like, that just seems so bad. the monster effect is the thing that has me like most intrigued here. But I think for 4 mana to summon Decadent Dragon, it does not seem that worth. I don't know. Flying Trample in an aggro deck, is that good? Like, I don't know. I feel like red just has a lot of like, 1-2 mana, like instant, like, zap, deal a damage to a token and then attack, haste, and yeah. So this just seems slow, and the bonus extra card effect is. I legitimately think it's dog shit. There's no shot you're gonna convince me this is a good card.
I gotta tell you that there's different ways to put red cards in your deck, and not just like red kill you fast aggro. Expensive Taste is a black spell. You have to pay 2 and a black to cast that. So you have to be playing red and black.
Okay. That is a good point, I suppose. So a red-black deck that isn't necessarily just herp-derp, attack. That's fair. I don't know. Maybe in that context, it is good, I suppose. All right. I don't know. I feel like the monster effect is better than this, like, Expensive Taste effect. Like, I refuse to believe that that is a good card effect. And it's like, well, if that card effect isn't good, then surely you're not playing a card that basically just does nothing on the one side, just exclusively for the other effect. But maybe it is worth it. Maybe a Flying Trample 4/4 for 4 mana that adds a mana every turn is good. Like, maybe that is good. I'm not sure if that's considered fast ramping in Magic, but I don't know. Maybe I'm biased towards the Expensive Taste effect, but that is so ass. I'm gonna go with this card sucks.
Okay. Adventure cards in general are sometimes thought of as 2-for-1s, which in Yu-Gi-Oh terms it's a +1. Like, you get a card and then it goes into exile, and then you get the next card. It was like 2 cards in 1, but then with Expensive Taste it becomes 3 cards in 1, so it's a +2 in 1 card. So with that said, this card is actually broken, and it's played in a lot of Rakdos value decks in Standard.
But you don't get the card. You have to pay the cost later when you can afford it.
I know, I'm gaslighting you. This card's awful.
My God, you terrified me for a second. I was like, that's like theoretical advantage. That's not okay.
Yeah, this card's actually bad. I said all that to make all like the people that are commenting didn't even get to that part. They just saw me say that and ran down to the comments real quick to tell me how wrong I am. But yeah, this card is not good at all.
Got him. In any shape or form, no. Adding like mana?
No.
Okay.
This card's not good. The problem with this card, and it's kind of similar to like Fable of the Mirror Breaker, where it's like a 3 mana enchantment that makes a 2/2, and the 2/2 can tap to add a treasure token. The thing about Fable of the Mirror Breaker is it discards and draws cards and doesn't actually like exile and use cards that you probably can't use, like you were saying, from your opponent's deck. So it's discarding cards that you use in your own deck, which is good. It digs you further to your own answers, and you don't have to hope your opponent has answers, right? And the other side of Fable the Mirror Breaker is a 2/2 that can copy non-legendary creatures and they gain haste, which is way, way better than 1 more mana for Decadent Dragon as a 4/4 Flying Trample that makes a treasure token. Because usually you want your treasure tokens to add to the amount of mana you have. If you have 4 mana anyway, number 1, you have to hope the Decadent Dragon lives, which is probably not going to. Okay, there's a bunch of removal spells. And then you have to attack with the Decadent Dragon to get the treasure token. Like, you're asking for a lot to make this card good, and unfortunately, cards off your opponent's deck are not as good as cards from your own deck, and a 4 mana card that makes a treasure, not very good. So yeah, this card is god-awful, and you were completely right about this.
Sick.
Alright, time to see the last card.
On the way to redemption. What color is left? Green?
This is green.
Pure green?
This one is almost pure green.
If I have to read some bullshit about counters, I'm going to be so mad.
You're definitely reading some bullshit with this.
Oh no! Okay. Huatli, Poet of Unity, 3 mana, legendary creature, human warrior bard. When Huatli enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. I love the text on this. Like, it tells you that you have to shuffle your hand. Like, okay. Yeah. Okay. So it's a 2/3/3 mana that instantly gets you land. Remind me how like land works again. You can only activate 1 land per turn, right?
No. You can only play one. Oh. Yes, in your terms, yes. You can only play 1 land per turn, similar to like a normal 7. You can only do it more than once per turn if the card says you can, like Luanda Reeds or something.
Okay. Search your library for a basic land card reveal. Magic text is so fascinating. Like, surely it should be a given that you reveal the card that you're adding and then, shuffling your hand, but...
It just says it,
Anyway, so is that 5 mana to do the next effect?
It is
red or white mana?
It is red or white,
Okay.
and then a red or white again, and 3 additional.
Exile her and then return to the battlefield transformed under her owner's control. Activate only as sorcery. Oh.
Aha, you've fallen into my trap of giving you 2 double-sided cards.
Another card. All right, she becomes something else. Let's see what it turns into. She becomes, bro, that's a freaking like essay here. Holy. Roar of the Fifth People. As this saga enters, saga reference, and after your draw step, as this saga enters, and after your draw step, add a lore counter. Sacrifice after, what is that, 4 turns?
Chapter 4.
4 something? After 4
chapters.
What, bananas?
These are chapters.
Chapters.
There's
okay.
chapters in the saga, right? Saga reference.
I see. So you can create 2/3/3 green dino tokens. Ayo. Roar of the Fifth People gains creatures you control have tap, add a land. Search your library for a dino, reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle it. Dinosaurs you control gain double strike and trample. And this is a dino-ass card. This is a dino card.
Yes.
Okay, so you're gonna have to tell me how sagas work. Are these just effects that just automatically happen over the course of multiple turns? Or?
Yes. This is basically, you got it right, nail on the head. You go untap, upkeep, draw a card, and then at the beginning of your main phase, the next lore counter triggers.
Bruh, this looks sick. Like, this is my initial, like, reading of it. Like, it's... First of all, she's a 3 mana 2/3 that just adds a land. Like, that's, like, fine. So, you know, stat-wise and stuff like that doesn't seem, like, terrible. And then on turn 5... Okay, so let me just get turn 5 straight. So I have to tap for 5, and then I immediately get 2/3/3 counters, or does the chapter start on the next turn?
Yeah, the beginning line says, as this saga enters, and after your draw step, add a lore counter. So when it enters, you will get the 2/3/3s. When it enters, you will get them.
Oh, as the saga enter. So essentially, it's 5 mana summon 2/3/3s.
Correct. And then it starts the train.
Right, and then the second effect, creatures you control have tap, add land, which doesn't seem incredible.
Add mana. You don't put the lands into your hand, you add the mana in your mana pool.
Yeah, okay. That doesn't seem amazing, but, like, you could essentially just look at this as, like, anything after this point is, like, free and, like, as a bonus. Like, search your library for a dino, reveal it, put it into your hand and show. To add a dino on turn 3 isn't incredible. But then dinosaurs you control gain double strike and trample, so I assume that's just piercing and attack twice?
Yes.
Okay. I feel like the best effect of this thing is the first one, because it's like, well, what if you get to turn 4 and you don't have that many dinos because your opponent's got control of the field? Then, you know, you have like one shitty like 1/1 guy that suddenly gets double strike and trample, you know, so...
Yeah.
And searching your library for a dino, I mean, I don't know, I guess if dinos are good and it's a good deck in Magic, then adding a dino you need on that specific third turn could be absolutely ridiculous. So, I mean, that is a thing.
You actually do lose the ability of the other abilities as the next turns go, because they're like trigger effects or something like that. But the difference between this card is the second chapter of this gives Roar of the Fifth People that ability, so it stays throughout the next chapters. So all of your creatures add mana while this enchantment is in play, even after the second turn. That makes sense.
I'm just trying to think of this thing as like worst case scenario. It's like 5 mana summon 6/6. Like, that seems fine when you're trying to wait to, like, when you're essentially getting what is like 5 mana to get all of this. The most relevant immediate effect being you get 2/3/3s. I feel like the longer I read this, the worse it gets, but I guess the initial hype of just like, holy shit, like, it's a card that turns into like just free cards, like, or free, abilities and quests, like, seems actually... Creativity-wise, I just have to say, like, this is really fucking cool. Like, that is something, but... Add a lore counter. Sacrifice after 4. Is that relevant at all? Like, the lore counter, I assume, is the thing that just keeps it alive, and then turn 4 it dies.
Yeah.
Also, can your opponent, like, delete this at some point? If they... Oh, they could just, like, remove this.
If there's something that says, like, destroy target non-land permanent, or or destroy target artifact or enchantment, and that you can target this.
Okay, this is getting way worse than I thought it was. I don't know how relevant MST is in Magic. I assume you probably want to play some, MSTs in your deck in Magic. So you essentially pay 5 mana and you immediately get 2/3/3s, right? Is that what you said?
Yes. There are some colors that can't really get rid of enchantments, like very niche ways to get rid of enchantments in some colors, like black. White has a lot of enchantment hate. Green has a lot of enchantment hate. Red doesn't have any enchantment hate. So if they're playing a red-black deck, they probably can't get rid of enchantments unless they're playing some niche card that can do it. But there's only usually like 1 or 2 in the whole format, and they're usually not that good.
Okay. What are the 5 people gains creatures you have tap add mana?
And
I just don't.
If you're playing a blue deck, blue's only answer to really enchantments. They don't have anything like destroys or exiles enchantments. Blue usually bounces non-land permanents. So like return this to your hand if they want to get rid of it.
What happens if you bounce this transformed card to your hand?
It becomes a Huatli in your hand.
Oh, it goes back to the original?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I feel like the best case scenario for this thing is to immediately get the 3/3s, wait till next turn, have a bunch of like spammed like creatures, tap all of them, and just add like 7 mana to your hand from your deck. But adding mana isn't even good in Magic, right? Like, because you can only play 1 per turn.
You don't add the lands from your. You just add the mana into your mana pool. Be able to cast spells with.
Oh.
So basically ramps you. Like you can cast like an 8-drop from your hand. Like a gigantic dinosaur.
All right. So after my initial bat chest at this thing, I don't know. 3 mana, 2/3 summon Huatli. Worst case scenario, she gets a basic land, and then you can do like the.
That was definitely. You definitely sound pretty constipated right now.
I'm very constipated. This card is like actually kind of not confusing, but just like I don't know. I think I'm doing the whole thing where I like want it to be good. Except the last time it was good, so I don't know.
That's true.
Okay, so I feel like with the knowledge that they can just remove this before it gets to the good turn of this, which I mean I guess like is the next turn creatures you control. So I mean it's like you have to summon Huatli, pay 5 mana, be in a position where you're already winning. Or rather, you already have a bunch of creatures on the field to get maximum value out of the Chapter 2 effect, which, if the Chapter 2 effect resolves with a lot of creatures on the field, I feel like you maybe just win the game on the spot if that resolves, right?
If you have a big card to cast out of your hand. If you have nothing in your hand, then yeah, you can have a lot of mana, but not be able to actually do anything with it. But the whole goal, if you're playing Huatli, you're playing humongous dinosaurs, so hopefully you have a big dino in your hand.
One of the games creatures you control have tap, add the mana to your mana pool. And then when you add that mana to your mana pool, does that stay as, right? Like that's permanent?
For that phase. Like you can tap a creature and add the mana, and then it will go away on the beginning of the next phase. So you kind of have to be careful about what you tap for mana that turn.
Yeah.
Like you have to be able to actually use the mana to cast something. Like you're not just going to tap your creatures to add mana and then not use it, you know?
Yeah. All right, I don't think this is very good. I don't think the value you get initially is that worth it. Like 3/3 vanilla tokens for 5 mana seems like maybe it's like okay. Like 5 mana 6/6, and then they have to like use something to get rid of like what is pretty decent. If I don't know, Chapter 3 doesn't seem that good. Like search your library for Dino. Just to add a dino, like I don't know.
I'm gonna add this. I'm gonna add this little caveat. Okay, every single one of these cards are either very good or very bad. Every card I've given you so far.
Very good or very bad.
Like very playable or hardly ever playable. There really is no in between. I know you see you waffling back and forth, but there really is no in between with this card.
Only a sorcery. Exile returns to battlefield transformed.
Like Ajani really is the only card I've given you that's like maybe kind of playable just because rotation just happened, but still not a good card.
You know, if Ajani is setting the standards for mid cards that are like okay, like but probably quite bad, then I don't know. I want to say that this is also not a good card. I think that the 2/3 add a mana is like add a land is good, but it's also like, you know, really all you're getting for 2/3 stats to then activate, which is once per turn on next turn, to then begin this weird saga. The saga is okay. It's vulnerable to destruction and outs, which in realistic terms, how much of these sagas are actually worth it? Like, the initial 6/6 stats is like okay for turn 5, but then there's a lot of like ifs that I feel like need to be present in order for it to be good. Like, Road of the People gains creatures you control have tap to add mana to your mana pool. But like, you're doing all of this for one card. Like, that seems like that's good if it lasts. I don't know. Like, why am I so unsure on this? I feel like you said, like it should be instant. Like, yes, this is sick, or no, this is terrible.
Well, no, I'm making it hard on you on purpose.
Yeah.
Okay, you have to spit it out. You have to give me an answer.
For 3 mana, then 5 mana, do all of this in the saga. I'm gonna go ahead and, you know what? I think this is actually a good card. That's my final answer.
For MBT, for beating MBT on the line.
Let's go.
This card's not good.
Ah! Damn it! It's so like. Oh, why is it not good? Is it because of like the vulnerability and the fact that it doesn't net you like any sort of real raw advantage or benefits immediately or within like X number of turns?
The raw advantage does give you a lot. Okay, the raw advantage immediately is 2/3/3s. You get a 2/3, and then you can pay 5 mana and you get 2/3/3s. The raw advantage of searching a library for a dinosaur. The dinosaurs are broken. The ones, especially the ones you can search for. I'll put one over here named Atali. That one is really stupid dinosaur. Getting double strike and trample. Very good. The reason that makes this bad is you're probably never gonna get to Roar the People at all.
Oh, why not?
This side of this card is very irrelevant. Because your opponent is going to play Huatli, and then add a land to the hand, and then pass turn. And then your opponent is going to read the backside of it and be like, oh crap, my removable spell in my hand is forced to go to this Huatli and nothing else. So then your opponent gets rid of Huatli, and you've gotten a land. Or your opponent has an instant speed removal spell, like a spell speed 2/1 or whatever, and he goes, you know what I should do? I should wait for them to activate this and pay 5 mana just for me to kill this in response.
I didn't realize how counterable this was.
Yes.
Because it is, I guess, like, yeah, it is just a spell card, essentially.
If I have a removal spell in my hand, and I see Huatli, I am going to wait for you to think it's okay for you to use this 5 mana thing, and then I'm going to kill it. I'm going to go Chainlink 2, kill this card.
Damn.
And you've just spent 5 mana to do nothing.
But isn't this an argument against any card that it can be countered? No?
No. You have to invest the 5 mana on your turn just for it to get killed by a less mana card. Like a 2 mana card can kill this at instant speed. And then you've done nothing, and then I go to my turn. So I basically skipped your turn for 2 mana. In Magic, we call that a Time Walk, which is one of the best extra turn spells in Magic history. You basically just take an extra turn if your opponent does it.
So there really is no other cards that work in a similar way where you would argue, well, I mean, it could get countered, right? Like,
I mean, any spell you cast could get countered, and any spell you cast could get removed. That's why in competitive Magic, you want to make sure that if your opponent does have interaction for the card, that is either, number 1, really, really worth it if you get to do it, or number 2, semi-resilient to removal spells. Which is a reason why Aclazotz is good, because if your opponent removes this card, you're like, okay, cool, I flip it, and now I flip it back.
Yeah, I think I was like too fixated on the saga portion of the card to really understand the initial usability of surviving.
You were right that if Huatli survives, you use the mana, it survives in response. You flip it to Roar the Fifth People, you make the dinosaurs, you add the mana, you search your dinosaur, and you give it double strike. If you get to do all those stuff, yes, you win the game. But that never happens.
Well, isn't that a good thing? Like, because it's like it just it sucks in responses from your opponent. I guess you technically have to invest the cost, so no, not really. You didn't really bait them, did you?
Yeah, no, you didn't. You kind of baited yourself. I mean, in a way, when you play this and you add the land, that is a good thing about Huatli, So where like if you remove it, yeah, it's kind of a +1 for you. Since you +1, they used a removal spell. But all you did was add a basic land. You didn't really do anything, that is relevant to the board state. So with that said, I guess you could make a dinosaur deck, and Huatli would be a part of your dinosaur deck. But it is very weak to removal, and not only that, but there's even 1 mana removal that gets rid of this card. Like Cut Down says, remove a creature with power and toughness total 5 or less, and 2 + 3 is 5. So 1 mana get rid of Huatli is very detrimental to Huatli being good. I would like, honestly, I'm a dinosaur enjoyer, okay? I'm a dinosaur lover. I would love for Huatli to be good, but and you can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I have never ever seen Roar of the Fifth People actually do the whole thing ever.
Damn. Oh well.
Oh yeah. Okay, it's okay. MBT got you. Actually, you know what? I think he didn't. He went 1-4 in the last video. If you want to see how MBT did, check out the next video. Thank you, Farfa, for coming back on the channel and doing this. Hopefully we can. Hopefully you can up it to 3-2 on the next one and do a little bit better. But it's okay. Regardless of whether you do good or bad, it's super entertaining. So thank you once again for coming on the show.
Yeah, and anytime. It feels so disappointing I didn't get Aclazotz. I think that was the one that I really wanted to get right because it's a black card and man, a 3-mana resummable flying lifelink. God, that is actually really broken, isn't it? Oh well.
You're like, now that you say it, I think it is really good. Change your mind real quick. All right. Anyway. Thank you for hanging out. As always, you can use code JAME5 at checkout at coolstuffinc.com to get 5% off of anything in the store. Check out the link down below for that as well. I'll see you in the next one. And as always, peace.
Peace.